Gender inequality, a problem still prevalent in this modern world, and we are here to take a step and try to stop this injustice. Oxford Dictionary defines gender inequality as a social process by which people are treated differently and disadvantageously under similar circumstances on the basis of their gender. It allows people different opportunities due to perceived differences which are based on the gender type. According to United Nations Women, for employment in most countries, women in rural areas who work for wages are more likely than men to hold seasonal, part-time, and low-wage jobs. Women also receive lower wages for the same work. For decision-making, women make up fewer elected representatives in most rural councils. In Asia, this ranges between 1.6% in Sri Lanka and 31% in Pakistan. And for violence against women, rural women experience domestic violence and yet few seek services, according to a multi-country study by the World Health Organization. But why is gender inequality still a problem up to this day? Here are a few reasons why. Number 1. Uneven access to education. 1/4 of young women between 15 to 24 will not finish primary school. Number 2. Lack of employment equality. Only 6 countries in the world give women the same legal work rights as men. Number 3. Job segregation. In most societies, there's an inherent belief that men are simply better equipped to handle certain jobs. Number 4. Lack of legal protections. According to research from the World Bank, over 1 billion women don't have legal protection against domestic sexual violence or domestic economic violence. Number 5. Lack of bodily autonomy. Accessing birth control is frequently very difficult. According to the World Health Organization, over 200 million women who don't want to get pregnant are not using contraception. Number 6. Racism. It would be impossible to talk about gender inequality without talking about racism. It affects what jobs women of color are able to get and how much they're paid, as well as how they are viewed by legal and healthcare systems. Number 7. Societal mindsets. How society determines the differences in value of men versus women plays a starring role in every arena, whether it's employment or the legal system or healthcare. Number 8. Ignorance. Biggest root of all these problems is the ignorance of the problem itself. People consider these problems as normal, even those discriminated against, as that is how the world works since they were born. These reasons are not only applicable to all women around the world, but to the LGBT community as well. Let us discuss the social concepts surrounding gender inequality. First, we have prejudice. Definition states that it is a negative judgment of a group and its individual members, often paired with our beliefs about the personal attributes of a group of people, which is often called stereotypes. These beliefs are formed through various means, which could stem from our own parents, from religion, or through other means. Depending on what your beliefs are about the group, your beliefs influence your actions or treatments towards them. Now this leads us to number 2, discrimination. It is an unjustified negative treatment or behavior towards a group of people. This may often, but not always, stem from existing prejudices. We have number 3, social inequalities. Gender inequality is discrimination on the basis of sex or gender, making one sex or gender to be more privileged over another. For example, out of all genders, men have higher chances of landing a job, being promoted, and have a higher salary than other genders. Society thinks lowly of women and members of LGBT, making them subject to more discrimination and stereotype threat. Now we have social identity theory. According to the social identity theory, people tend to categorize, identify, and compare. We categorize and label ourselves and identify or associate ourselves in that certain group to gain self-esteem. We then compare ourselves to other groups with a bias towards our own, which is called in-group bias. The more important your social identity is and the stronger your attachment is towards that identity, the more you react prejudicially to threats from others. Men are more inclined to commit these prejudiced acts because ever since, they have been considered as superior to women. And with women slowly entering fields deemed as a man's work, it implies to men that they are no longer superior because even a woman or a person of another gender can do the work that's meant for them. Now we have number 5, attribution. In relation to the social identity theory, people are likely to attribute someone's behavior or personality based on how they categorize themselves. This is applicable to groups such as women and LGBT affected by gender inequality. The roles engraved in people's minds about these groups made them assume that they are these types of people. For example, men in general have this assumption that women are simply weak and are driven mostly by emotions rather than logic. Last but not the least, number 6, bystander effect. Although a lot of people see these injustices happening all around them, what prevents them from taking action is the bystander effect. This is the finding that a person is less likely to provide help whenever there are other bystanders. A person only helps when someone else does, and this needs to change. How can we help solve gender inequality? Here are some social actions that we can do.
Number 1. Share the care. Start with a family or household discussion. Identify care needs and domestic responsibilities. Number 2. Call out sexism and harassment. Number 3. Reject the binary. Number 4. Amplify factual LGBT and feminist books, movies, and more. Last but not least, number 5.
Remind girls and members of the LGBT their worth.
It's time for a generation to stand up and speak about this issue. In order for change to happen, we must start with ourselves. We must take the action in making sure gender inequality becomes less prevalent in future generations. Let's practice equality and share the love for all genders. As Emma Watson once said, it's time we all see gender as a spectrum instead of two sets of opposing deals.
You don't need to be alone with all those blues.